Hi, everybody. I am here with Praise I Am That I Am. And so I'm really thrilled because this is the first time I've had Praise on my channel. And I've had this channel for a while and I've seen Praise for a long time on his channel. He's very active in the community and he is a Christian and he's got a lot of very positive views towards Christianity and towards other Christians. And he sometimes gets involved in some dramas, but I don't know if we'll talk about that so much today. We'll see. We'll see what we'll talk about. So without further ado, let me introduce Praise.
I appreciate you having me on, SJ. This is I've seen you in MDD for many debates, and I've always admired your presentations, what you bring to the table. You're a great defender of the faith, and it's refreshing to actually have a discussion with you. Like, really, the first time, except for the chat. I mean, you've talked in the chat before briefly, but yeah, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's pretty fun, and you know a lot of the same people that I know, and Doki Doki, I wanna
Yep.
say thank you for the super sticker for Standing for Truth fan club. It's like
Doki's in the house. I love Doki. Yeah, he's always around in our dramas.
yeah, Ryan
Hey,
the
Ryan, good to see
Presbyterian.
you.
Yeah, so you got some good people here. So yeah, so let's talk about that. So tell me about how did you decide that you wanted to go on and share your views on Christianity with everybody else? How did you decide to do that? So because it's not something that everybody does. A lot of people don't feel comfortable getting out
Yeah,
there in front of other people and just sort of sharing your views. So what brought you to Christianity and to go to YouTube?
it was actually JMD Apologetics on Instagram. I have like an Instagram page for apologetics, and he ran across my page, and he says, "Well, can you do content for me on my YouTube page?" And I was like, "What? I can't get on. I can't get on. I mean, I don't like to, bring my voice out there. I mean, I'd be nervous as heck, and I'm not really a good speaker. Back then, I wasn't really a good speaker." And he goes, "Just try it, keep working with it." And eventually, I got better at it. And then I ran across Dr. Josh and Skylar on
Oh,
slavery, and it just shooted forward. They shot me forward. So in a way, it was a great thing that I engaged with them, and we've had a lot of back and forth with those two. People know who I'm talking about. I mean, Skylar, yeah, and
oh
Dr. Josh.
yeah. They've both been on my channel multiple times. Well, actually, let me think. If Skylar's been on my channel, I think just once, but Josh has been on my channel a couple times.
Yeah.
So I definitely know those two.
We've been oppositional for a while, but now we're good friends. Me and Josh talk privately, like through text and stuff, and we're good friends. But it wasn't like that at the beginning. Me and him and Skylar were going at it, some drama fest, big time there. But it's been fun though. It's been a fun ride. I just appreciate God bringing me forth and coming to this knowledge, and being a better speaker and trying to help the body of Christ on YouTube somehow to speak against the enemy out there is in full force. We need speakers like you, SJ, that know how to defend the faith really well.
Oh, well, thank you. And likewise, I think you defend the faith very well too. And I didn't, you know, what's funny is I think the third person who told me that you are on text message with Dr. Josh. So
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's like I have a couple of other friends. Daniel Ray's been on here. He said he was texting with Dr. Josh. And who's the other one? Somebody else. Josh, this other guy called Josh Brister. He said he
Oh,
does text
yeah.
messages with him too. So
I
Dr.
remember
Josh
Josh
gets
Brister.
around.
Yes, he has a lot of friends. Well, I mean, why wouldn't he? He has a fantastic personality, and high IQ person. But he's actually helped me along a lot with my studying and how to approach ancient Near East studies and things. So, I mean, I have to give a lot of thanks to those guys, even though that they're on the wrong side. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Josh, I know he's got a new book on the Old Testament. I read his book on slavery and
yeah,
I posted a very positive evaluation of it and I put down the points where I was in disagreement, which were very few. He
right.
had stuff that he pointed out in the Bible. I'm like, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's part of it. That's part of it. But then when he said God endorsed slavery, I'm like, no, 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 no. That's where that's
No.
where and he had God with a little g.
Yeah, that's those little things they like to put in, those little jabs. But by and large, though, I mean, Dr. Josh is pretty unbiased. He seems to be like he'll even call out, I've seen atheists and their points. What they like to do, atheists, they like to paint slavery in the Old Testament like the antebellum slavery, back
Mhm.
in the 17, was it 17 or 1800, something around
Yeah.
there.
Since
And
1609 or something,
yeah,
1610.
some in those type of times, it was bad. It was really bad. That slavery is horrible, and it's been a blot on humanity. And but they painted the social economic system back there in the Mosaic times as that type of slavery, and that's just isn't true. Even Josh has plainly said that's not like this. That's not what's going on. So it's very nuanced, and you have to really get familiar with the scholarship. And I respect Josh for that. He has his viewpoints. I disagree, but we're good friends.
Yeah, great. I'm just going through the messages. We got a lot of people probably coming for you, because I don't recognize some of these names in here before, like, Mac Jones, Jerome M, Doki Doki's here. I
Jerome,
do
yeah.
know. Who else we have here? Mac Scott Stell, David Poinciano said, he says, "Sup, SJ Praise, but why does Praise use an avatar?"
Ooh,
So
beer, yeah, pizza.
yeah, and then Kip Davis, he's gonna be on my channel. Kip is gonna be on my channel next Sunday at 3:30 if you guys wanna see, a dumpster fire. Oh, just kidding.
Yeah, dumpster
He's
fire.
he's an atheist. I was just kidding.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Kip. Yeah, I know. I've seen him on your show. In fact, yeah, you hold. I like how you are nonpartisan. You'll have a bunch of atheists on here, let them express their viewpoints, and I think you deserve a lot of credit for that. I try to do the same on my channel too. I try to draw atheists in there and challenge their points, and hopefully that they'll reform their position and maybe draw to God and maybe repent. But that's my hope. Um, but I haven't really. I mean, I'm not sure about you, but maybe you draw an atheist to the faith, but not me personally. I haven't. But what has been good is many Christians have said that I have strengthened their. I mean, some of the content I've shared has helped strengthen their faith. So at least that's happened. I'm sure with you as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, if you had to look at the arguments for Christianity, if you looked back and people have made all kinds of different arguments from prophecies in the Old Testament that were fulfilled to looking at Jesus's resurrection and even
Yeah.
skeptical ancient skeptics or ancient people who were against Christianity who offered support for the whole New Testament position. So I'm just wondering if you were making the arguments for Christianity, what do you find pretty compelling?
The best arguments would be the resurrection, historical resurrection. I believe that if you go through the criterias of embarrassment, of I think it's dissimilarity, and there's another criteria there. Oh, multiple attestation. Like those criterions to me are untouchable. Really, you can get to historical resurrection easily. um and also I'd say the historicity of Jesus himself. I mean, even Bart Ehrman's and secular people would say that Jesus existed. That's really indisputable. So basically Jesus himself might be the best evidence for Christianity. What do you know? Metaphysics is another one of mine. I love metaethics. I have there's some good moral arguments that I like to bring up that show that evolution just can't account for a lot of the morality out there. But I know you touch on that a lot. I'm really impressed with your material on that as well.
I love I think the moral argument is one of the I mean, that's one of the underused ones. I don't feel like people use that enough because I look at how we have these objective moral values and duties. And the key is the duties. Why
Yeah,
should we tell the truth? Why should we be kind? Why should we be forgiving and be loving and all that kind of stuff? Why do we feel like why does our conscience bug us if we're not? Where'd that come
right.
from?
Moral on
Evolutionarily speaking.
Yep, that's moral ontology, the moral oughts. Why ought we do such a thing? And the nature of morality itself, like that, it does speak to some type of intrinsic morality that is prescriptive. And I like how I used to think objective morality was it was independent of or it was universal. I used to think it was universal, but the way you explained it, I use this continuously now. You said independent of human thought or opinion.
Stance. Yes, stance independent.
Yes.
That's what the
Yes.
scholars say. They call it stance independent. So, because some people try to say it's mind independent, I'm like, no, 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 it's stance independent.
Stance independent, yeah. So the way I try to carry that on in my apologetics, and that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a better explanation than the typical one that's been popularized over time. But I think this is a better one the way you explained it.
Yeah, well, I think I like it too, just like you do, and I think the idea that because you can look at biology and you can look at social evolution and you can say that that can help explain description. It can help explain moral
Right.
descriptives, like our values and stuff that we're born with, and how genes are passed down, and how you do inherit a certain level of personality, like you inherit a certain level of empathy from your parents. But it can't explain the why and the prescriptions. Why should we act like this? Why should we
Bingo.
do? And so that's the cool thing. That's going back to that. And it's if we have these moral laws, which some people deny that, you go steal that guy's wallet if he denies it.
Yeah, then morality becomes really relevant to the ones they say morality is subjective and relativistic. It doesn't become relativistic then.
Yeah,
And
exactly. You just stole
yeah,
my wallet. You did something. What are you talking about? I did something wrong. It's your opinion, right?
yeah, just if it's everything's a moral opinion, then it just fizzles out and it becomes no morality. You can just dismiss it as really anything.
Hmm.
But there's something I don't know if you really studied. This is something you might really enjoy. It's called supererogatory actions, and it's in philosophy is defined as morality that goes beyond obligation. Jesus himself, the
Mm.
cross, is classified as a supererogatory action. It means that it's something that that's not deserved. It's even bad for the person doing it. It's even not beneficial to the one who does the supererogatory act. And they deem this or classify this as praiseworthy in philosophy. So Christianity is defined. It should be noticed as a supererogatory faith, and I think that's pretty awesome. I think that speaks to why evolution fails too, because how can evolution address or account for supererogation? But that's something to look into. You might enjoy that.
I love that because it reminds me. See, I've been looking at Christian synderesis, and that's sort of the idea of when we
Yeah.
do these things that aren't necessarily good for us. Like if you see a child, I always use the example: if you see a child standing next to a pond and an alligator lurches out, your
Yep.
instinct is to run, but you've got a deeper moral obligation to go help that child, even though you're going to
Yes.
risk your own life.
And yeah, if you lost your own life, that would be a praiseworthy act in philosophy, and that's what Christianity's predicated on. And that's why I believe Christianity is the highest worldview out there, and it's at the top, the pinnacle, and it's based on love. God
Hmm.
is love, and I mean, you do a great job revealing that to people. We need more people showing, I mean, more Christians revealing the love of God, because that is Jesus, who He is. He is love. He's supererogation. He's what we call sacrificial love. So Christianity
Yeah.
is grounded in sacrificial love, the highest love there is.
I love that. I think that's great. And I want to say thank you before I forget to Doki Doki SFT Fan Club for his super stickers today. So thank you, Doki Doki. So I like that because I think you look at other faiths, like for example, if you look at Buddhism and what the Buddha says, he says he
Right.
got to the highest pinnacle of enlightenment. He believes that the Buddhists and the Hindus also believe in reincarnation, which the Bible explicitly teaches against. But the other thing about the Buddhists and the Hindus is he believes that at the highest level of enlightenment, life is all about suffering. And it's yeah, that's
Right.
partially true, but that's not the
Yeah.
highest level. And so I think what you're saying is we're taking it up to another level to
Yes.
yes, it's about suffering, but we also see the Son of Man suffering for us. And
And for his enemies, his foes. And guess who's in the house? Digital Hammurabi. Good to see you, Dr. Josh. Man, awesome. We were talking about you earlier. Your ears
his,
must be ringing right now.
his ears his ears are ringing. I'm just going through. So it's so funny. Yeah, we started talking about you and Skylar because that's how Praise got into this business, this YouTube
Yes.
business. So we got to credit to you guys for your hard work in bringing Christians out of
Absolutely.
their homes and into the YouTube channels.
It's been a ride, I'm telling you, man. It's been a ride. Oh yeah, and we have a lot of drama in the community, but I take it not necessarily as a bad thing like I used to. I'm starting to, think of it in a different way. Is this people are passionate about their views, and we just have to, parse it out a little bit better and let people have their viewpoints and just, talk it out better. But yeah, there's always something going on in my community, so I'm gonna check
Yeah,
it
what's
out.
going on now? That's what I want to know because I have seen some infighting between it's you and usually the SFT group, and then there's others. So what's today's news?
It's yeah, usually camp SFT standing for Truce Camp against Smokey's Camp. Or anti OSAS. There's different, yeah, there are different cliques and things going on out there. Like, I mean, are you familiar with OSAS and then also conditional security? Those are usually the two different camps going on out there.
No. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I have seen some of that kind of stuff. So which do you
Yeah.
believe? What do you believe on that?
Oh man, see, and this is like
So once
it's a
saved,
tough
always
one.
saved. So let's just clarify what
Yeah,
what we're talking about. So some people believe once saved, always saved, and others believe that you can lose your security. You can lose
right.
and I think that the losing one goes to there's one verse, I want to say it's First Timothy 4:6 maybe or Hebrews 4:6
Yeah.
says something like
Hebrews
once
6. Yeah, Hebrews 6 is a good
6.
one.
That's the one.
Right. Yeah. It talks about how they tasted something, and then it's like worse for them than it was in the beginning, and all these other things. So there's a lot of stern warnings out there that if you're not vigilant, you're going to be in trouble. This is where the OSASers would say you don't lose your salvation per se, but you lose your fellowship with God, which is still to me just as bad. Like how could how could you be separated and uh s- you know uh separated from God? I just To me that would be a horrible thing. But I mean, those are things we try to work out in our community, these debates, but they're fun. These debates are fun, and I love watching your debates as well.
Yeah, I see, I kinda go back and forth on those 2 terms, once saved, always saved.
Yeah.
Because what I feel, and this is what I personally believe, I believe that because God knows what we're going to do, he knows what I'm a Molinist in a way, I believe he knows what we would, should, and will do under varying circumstances, and he put us in the most ideal circumstances to make sure that we get closer to him and to maximize
Right.
whatever he has in store for us. But I believe since he knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of our lives, because he's concurrently in our past, present, and future, I believe that he would not give somebody the knowledge that if he knows that person is going to ruin it in some way or is going to blow it. And so I actually believe that Hebrews 6 is there, but I think that I feel like a once saved, always saved because God,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't think you can lose it. I think there's enough verses to say that Jesus is not going to let you lose it. He's the lost sheep and the parable of the
Yeah.
prodigal son, and it's like all those verses.
Yes, exactly. God has a lot of grace. In fact, there's a verse that says that the more sin we have, more grace abounds, and that in the Greek it signifies like super grace. So sin really isn't necessarily a problem. The problem I have with OSAS is it becomes a little bit deterministic to a point. If you want to walk away from God, and God's always going to be there to give you a some type of acceptance for you to do that. Well, then where's the free will? Like, if there's I believe in some type of freedom of will, and if God doesn't let you walk away from him, then it's to me it's almost like we call irresistible grace, where he draws you. You have no control over it, but he like externally does something to you where you come to him, and you just become like a robot to him. And that's the only problem I have with those SaaS at that point.
I see your it kind of reminds me. I just did a video that here's what happened. So I'm in my this I'll make sense in a second when you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because one of my Jewish coworkers, couple days ago. She said, we were sitting at a faculty meeting and she was sitting right next to me. And she said, you have to look at this YouTube video. And I thought, oh, okay. One of her rabbis, wonder what the YouTube video is about. And so I'm driving. So I wait till I get out of the faculty meeting. I plug my little headset in. I'm driving down the road. I listened to this rabbi, and he said his whole verse of Genesis 3 that talks about the fall and original sin, his whole take
Yes.
on that, he goes, we had a choice. Adam could have chosen, and Eve, they could have chosen immortality and remained in the Garden of Eden,
Yes. Yep.
Garden of Eden, and basically just been puppets for God. Or they made the correct choice that God secretly really wanted them to make, which was to choose morality. And I've been reading other Jewish people's take on this, and to get away from the Garden of Eden, because he wants us to go out into the world and make choices and to choose between good and evil, and to not be, what did he call it? I'm going back and forth between this guy's video and another thing that I read on that. And so he said that this is all like, there's no original sin. This is something that God wanted us to do. And I go back and I read Genesis 3 over and over. I start reading Genesis 2.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
God didn't
I
say
think
he
you shared that in
secretly
your
wanted us
channel.
to.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think you had, didn't you share that
Oh
on
yeah,
your
you saw
channel?
that. But
Yes,
okay.
I was there and you had like a premiere and I heard the guy say that. And you're right, that kind of blew my mind. But DH said something I thought was interesting. Here's hoping that OSAS ends up being the right theological position. We have DH, he's the OSAS. That's cool, man. That's interesting.
He's
Yeah,
DH is a lost sheep. Okay, DH. We
yes.
know that's our position on you. We've decided you're a lost sheep, and Jesus is going to be chasing after you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen this, but he shared a personal thing on it. But I think he shared on his own Digital Hammurabi channel about a couple of years ago. But he did a sermon before he converted over to atheism, and it was well done. It really struck a chord with me, and I recommend that people check it out. His sermon there. He's a great preacher, actually.
I'll check it out. I did see him, not to talk about you too much, Josh, because we know you're in the chat, so you can respond. But I did see Josh on Dr. Michael Brown's channel talking about his deconversion,
Yeah.
and it seemed like a very heartfelt conversation. And so then I tried to get Josh to come on my channel to talk more about that, because I liked how he was. I liked what he was saying in there. I liked some of the things he was saying, as far as,
Right.
I mean, Dr. Brown had some good questions for him, put it that way. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, Genesis 3, if I go back to that, so we have this idea that the other thing that the Jewish guy said, the rabbi, he said that the serpent in the book, it says he's very crafty, and you can look at
Hmm.
different words for that. And I guess the word translates, it's got multiple meanings. The particular Jewish word, the Hebrew word, it translates to things like crafty, or it translates also to subtle, or it translates
Subtle.
to a word like naked. Like the word itself
Yeah.
can be used different ways. So then when Eve all of a sudden is naked, and Adam's naked, they realize
Right.
they're naked. The word is the same. That's the word that's used to describe the serpent, which is kind of interesting. But the serpent was crafty. And he said, "You will surely die." Now, people don't seem to realize Adam and Eve did die, right? That's humans died. That was what God said was going to happen. And so the Lord
Yeah.
was truthful. So the
Yeah.
Hebrew guy's like, "Oh yeah, well, they didn't die right away." Well, he said they're going to surely die. They did die. So the human race started.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah, so I mean, I just look at that. So have you looked into prophecies in the Old Testament? Do you ever look into that kind of stuff, like the Book of Daniel, or that?
oh yeah.
I'm saying that because I know how much Kip and Digital Hammurabi like the Book of Daniel,
Yeah.
Psalm 22.
Not so much Daniel, but Isaiah 53. I actually did a debate on modern day on Isaiah 53, and boy did I enjoy that. I believe that, there's some explicit prophecies out there that show that it would have to be divine inspired. I know that Kip might disagree. That's fine. We could maybe talk about that someday, but um how, I mean, like the Jews would say the divine servant they're suffering would be Israel. Like, to me, there's nowhere in the text you can really qualify that, because it's like speaking of an individual. and like it says that he will take the sins or the suffering. That doesn't mean, like, I don't know where Israel ever took the sins of anyone. But to me, those are really compelling prophecies. Psalms 22. I know you had Psalms 22 on the other day, and that was a great discussion. It really was.
Yeah, I
And I know,
love
yeah.
that one. And let me just point out before I want to correct myself. Kip is the one who talked about the word also being naked and meaning things like crafty and subtle. So Kip pointed that
Wow.
out, not the rabbi. So I want to give Kip credit for that. There was a few different people coming, and he definitely pointed that out. So sorry, Kip, I didn't acknowledge that, but I want to make sure we know. So I think Isaiah 53, I'll tell you, praise. I was sitting when I was ready to come. It's this whole idea where when you're ready to learn the good news, God will send a teacher. And so I found myself sitting next to a preacher on a plane when I was pondering Christianity and what my beliefs were. And he started
Wow.
asking me things, and he told me about Isaiah 53. And he said, "Who am I describing?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's Jesus. Now, where is that in the New
Yes.
Testament?" And he's like, "No, it's written 700 years before." I'm like, "What? Do the Jews know this?"
Exactly. That should be like, it should slap you in the face and say, "Wow, that is Yeshua the Messiah," and it's exactly what happened in the suffering of Christ. And it's a beautiful, I mean, what a beautiful chapter too, because something that happened was really bad. We would say as a really bad event on someone end up being the best thing that's ever happened to mankind, because what he went through, we get the rewards out of that, and the healing. And even says that actually we receive the healing of his sins and his stripes. We receive the healing, and we think. I mean, that's why he deserves the glory in heaven. That's why he's the God man. I mean, you believe I believe you think he's the divine, right? You
Oh, of
not
course.
oh, good, okay.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, no, I
that's not
definitely.
necessarily across the board in our community. There's some Unitarians out there, so I
Oh
decided
my
to ask
gosh, no,
that.
I'm a definite Trinitarian. I definitely believe that
Awesome.
Christ pointed to himself sitting at the right hand of the mighty one, coming in the
Yeah.
clouds of heaven. That's quite clear that he's on the same level as God. He referenced Psalm 110 there. He,
Yep.
he referenced Daniel 7. He even in the, what's really interesting, and this reminded me seeing Kip here because Kip is a Dead Sea Scroll expert. And what I found super interesting is looking at Isaiah 53, I think it's 11, and it says, "And he will see," and the Masoretic text, which was written hundreds of years after the New Testament was written, the Masoretic text said he will see from Isaiah 53:11. But if you go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says he will see the light in two different scrolls and in some of our
Yes.
English translations.
Rob from Essential Apologetics just showed me that a couple nights ago, and I was awestricken. That was such an awesome truth. That shows he resurrected. The Jew, I think there was, like, Rob told me that the Jews did have a resurrection there in Isaiah 53. I'm like, what? How could there be a resurrection there? Then he went into the light. You're right. That's the word. It was different manuscripts and traditions. Like the way Rob explained it is that someone wanted it out of there, so they added it in there because it was like so compelling that he really is the Messiah. So I'm glad that truth has been uncovered. I think that's very important. Maybe, if you want, you should do a show on that. I would love to see that.
Oh, I did do something where I talked about that. I talked about the verse because what I did is you notice if you go into the New Testament, there's many, many, many times where they're quoting something from the Old Testament, and what they
Yeah,
were quoting is from the Septuagint. They weren't quoting some because the Septuagint, the Greek translation
yeah,
of the text, the Septuagint was around. That's what they were using. In fact, I just saw Peter Williams make a strong argument for Jesus being trilingual. And he was talking about many instances where Jesus was speaking in Greek or conversing with people who were Greek, and
yeah.
how his mother Mary came from a town where they spoke predominantly Greek. And so, because people like to say he was speaking Aramaic, but my bottom line is, so the Septuagint, I go back there and I look at how did they say it, and Isaiah 53:11 definitely says the light in the Septuagint. And
Yes,
so,
but it's also in a particular Hebrew one too. But you got to find the right Hebrew manuscript. So, and that's why it's suspicious. Why it's, it's why is it different in one Hebrew manuscript, and in another one, and then also the Septuagint, validates it as well. So that is very interesting what happened there.
yeah.
Um,
Well, there's a few verses where things are a little bit. I mean, even some of the church fathers, the thing that I also did a video on that I think was fascinating is I thought, well, what if we didn't have the Bible at all? What if all Bibles were destroyed
Right.
when Diocletian decided to destroy all the Bibles? You know, he had this word out that you had to get rid of all of your texts that related to scriptures. And this is right before Constantine came in. But you had a lot of persecution, a lot of stuff destroyed. But what's interesting is you can piece together every major part of the New Testament by the church fathers because they quote it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. So even if we didn't have the Bible, look what we have from the church fathers. We can piece together all of Christianity just from them because they were quoting it. So I mean, I think that there's so much. There's we just have an abundance of information pointing to Jesus and his ministry, his life, his resurrection, his
Absolutely.
death, what his apostles believed. So.
Yeah, but I think God preempted this as well, because if there was only one transmission point of manuscripts, then it could easily been destroyed. But since we had multiple transmission points, like it was all over the place. These manuscripts were being transmitted.
Mhm.
You can see how it was all working together. That's why we have all these thousands of manuscripts, because I mean we had multiple places where they were transmitting them in oral traditions and things like that. So I do see, to me, the preservation of these manuscripts kind of, it does show me that God's hand was, in this. And I think that should help the faith out of Christians that are, weak in faith. Well, look how God preserved the manuscripts. And
Mhm.
I mean, 99.7% of the manuscripts are flawless. It's inerrant. There's only like a very small part, and a lot of them are semantical spelling errors. I mean, there's only a very few that actually have any uh, relevance, like the one where Jesus was talking with the lady that sinned or whatever. She had multiple husbands, and he wrote in the dirt. I think it's John 7. I forget. Yeah, they call it the pericope.
Yeah, yeah, you're talking
Yeah.
about the adulteress that was supposed to be stoned?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually looked into that 'cause that's one verse. There's also this one that's in First John that is also the comma, the Johannine comma, and I looked at
Yep.
these verses. We have a lot of support for those verses in the ancient literature. And the fact that they were pulled out is merely because right around the 4th century, the two basic manuscripts, Codex Sinaiticus and the Codex Alexandrinus, those did not include those particular passages. However, we've got earlier stuff that does include references to those passages. And so we've got lots of earlier stuff. It's just that,
Yes.
and the ESV tends to, it depends on which version you get of English, but some include that stuff and some don't, and a lot of them put these footnotes in. But I think we have a good argument from earlier than
I
the
agree.
codices that in support of those.
Right, and I think there's good internal evidence too, because the style, scholars have said that the style, it looks like it is Johanni authorship, and I think there's even internal evidence as well. So I do hold that John 7 there should be the pericope adultery, they call it. They should be canonical. I agree with that.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was thinking about that. I wonder, here's what I've just been musing about. I wonder what Jesus wrote in the sand. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like there's only one other time in the whole Bible that Jesus wrote something or that something was written by God in front of people, and it's in the book of Daniel when you have the king who is busy celebrating. King Belshazzar is busy celebrating because they had just raided the Jerusalem temple and they took all of the silverwares and the goblets and all the expensive stuff, and he throws a big party for his people, and they're all sitting around getting drunk and laughing and having a good time, and all of a sudden a hand appears and writes something on the wall, and it says
Yeah,
you've been weighed in the balances and found
that's
wanting.
right. Yeah.
The kingdom's going to be destroyed
That
tonight.
is an
And it
awesome
was.
passage, yeah. And then also, it might be a reference to deity, because by the finger of God, he wrote the commandments,
Oh
and
yeah.
he had his own finger there. It might be something like a it's probably has to do with one of their sins they were doing. Maybe he was writing like a commandment or something, and like because they were self-righteous people, hypocrites. They thought that they didn't sin. I mean, well, Jesus knows, obviously knows, like he's God, so he would know their sins, and like I think maybe that's what he wrote. A lot of people, there's some good ideas out there, but yeah, maybe that's something another show we could, if someone could talk about. It'd be awesome.
I'd love to see more on that because I think it's the whole thing. Because I thought to myself, he said, "Let he who has not sinned throw the first stone," and I thought to myself, what if
Right.
he wrote, "You've been weighed in the balances and found wanting."
Wow, that could be true. Yeah, that would
But
be
the
frightening. Yeah.
Oh, it would be if that, but that's the, I mean, that's one that, what's really fascinating too. I've been thinking about this because I was again listening to Dr. Peter Williams yesterday, and he had a fantastic seminar that was 3 hours of free seminar that I listened to while I was riding my bike and just having a good time. But the thing that he pointed out that I think is interesting too is he looked at ancient cultures and he looked at the way that the Pharisees would have viewed people who were poor versus people who were rich, and he said the
Right.
shock that Jesus had in presenting the parable with the rich man and Lazarus, because they
Uh, I think you're either froze or it's either me. I'm not sure. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Oh, is SJ froze? Oh, okay. No, SJ, come back.
can you hear
No.
me now? Praise, I think I'm
Yes,
back.
you're back.
Sorry
You're
about
back.
that. My camera
Oh
just
no,
dropped
that's
out.
fine. Yeah, it happens to me all the time.
So no, I was just gonna say so they would have, so he was shocked. He finds himself in this Hades kind of situation, and he sees Abraham across the
Yep.
way, and he doesn't try to get out because he realizes he can't get out, but he wants Abraham, he wants people to go warn his brothers. And God says, "Well, you have the scriptures. You've been given this stuff. You've given
Yep.
Moses. You wouldn't even believe it if a man resurrected." And then of course Jesus resurrected. And so I thought that was kind of cool to think about.
That is, yeah. I think that was a good precursor to the resurrection. That, I mean, do you believe that too? If they're not going to believe the prophets, I mean, most of the prophets or the Bible, then they're not going to believe on the one that resurrected. Or do you think that's alluding to something else? What do you think about that?
I do think I think that a lot of people see, I feel like there's atheists and there's agnostics, and I think a lot of the
Hmm.
agnostics today, some of them are just downright lazy. Like I don't think
Right.
I think some agnostics, not the one that we're finding on YouTube or Twitter, but I'm talking about people who are just, they just really don't care if there's a God. They don't really care to do any investigation. This is not something they spend any time on. I've got
Yep.
relatives who are like that, who do no investigation at all. One told me, she said, "I really don't want there to be a God."
Yeah, I've
You
heard that too. I've heard
and
that
I'm like,
several
"Well, have you
times.
done
Yeah.
any investigate?" "No, I just don't really want there." I'm like, "Why? What, she hasn't done anything wrong. She's not, it's not like she's living in sin or
Yeah.
anything. I just don't know what in the world is with this woman." But anyway, that's, I digress. But the thing, there's that camp. But then there's the camp of people who have done all the work, and like they know the gospels, they know this stuff like the back of their hand, and yet they still, even if all of the evidence comes in front of them for Jesus' resurrection, they still don't want to believe it. And I think that group is the really, that's an interesting group right there.
Yes, and I've had my encounters with a few of them. Like one of them is Godless Engineer.
Oh yeah.
He's a nice guy though. He's not that bad a guy because I've had several conversations with him. He's a smart guy. He knows a lot about the literature out there and the scholarship. But I think he distorts it a little bit to his for I think for his channel, maybe for like what he's trying to for his purpose. I hate to say that, but I do think he's doing it for his channel, for popularity. Maybe I don't. I want to get into that too much. I don't speculate too much, but yes, there are atheists out there to me that are suspicious. And another one is Richard Carrier. Like he is
Oh
another
yeah.
suspicious one to me as well. But they're all smart guys. Like they all know what's going on. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Richard Carrier. So just to, if people don't know who he is, he's one of the first persons I started writing against because he's a Jesus mythicist.
right,
He thinks there's a small probability that Jesus actually existed, and to have that position, and so does Godless Engineer have that position. I think is going completely against any historian worth his salt in any university. You can't find a tenured historian who believes that Jesus did not exist. It's absurd. And
right.
so and even Muslims, I mean, other faiths, they don't believe that Jesus is divine, but they certainly believe he existed.
Right, and then, I mean, it's just multiple attestation too. That I mean, we have non-Christian hostile accounts of even the Talmud, attesting that he
Mhm.
existed, and not only the Talmud, but also Roman accounts from Tacitus. I mean, then we can. I mean, the atheists, what they do is they try to. Oh, well, no, it's just so many years after, and to me, when you try to battle that, when you try to make a year, like if it's not contemporary or something, to me that borders on a presentist fallacy. Like you're imposing your own presentist type of criterias and imposing it on ancient culture, and I just think that's a wrong thing to do. And historians know that's the line you don't cross. But I mentioned this to Godless Engineer. He really hasn't really responded to me adequately. But if you want to check that out, it's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I will. In fact, if Doki's been very kindly posting a lot of the videos that we've been referencing. So Doki, if you want to find that video and post it, I appreciate it. That's always a nice thing that he's been doing. So
Oh
yes,
yeah, Doki. He's always doing good. I mean, he's always helping me out on my show as well, and he's awesome, Doki.
yeah, yeah. So I also realized Kip a little while ago said he's not an atheist. I think he's agnostic. So I have to change my video
Okay.
around a little bit next time. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the thing, like, when you go and you look at the information, and if you're honest with yourself, like you're mentioning, we've got Josephus, Tacitus, Suetonius, Marabar, Serapion. We have all kinds of ancient sources within
Right.
150 years of Jesus that were against Christianity, but they support Jesus's existence. And so trying to that what the people will do is they'll try to take them one by one and discount, oh, Josephus didn't really say that, or Tacitus, yeah, he wasn't really talking about Christians, he talked about Christus, not Chris. It's like, give
Questions.
me a
Yeah.
break. It's like,
Y- Yeah, it's so semantical, it's ridiculous. And it becomes pedantic at that point, and it's what Godless Engineer does. But I think Inspiring Philosophy did a great job defending that in his debate on, I think it was a non sequitur show about 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And
that was one
you
of my
can watch
favorite
that.
debates.
Yes, it was a great debate. IP's a beast. I don't agree with everything he says. Like I'm his evolutionary viewpoint. I don't hold to that. I don't share that viewpoint. But everything else he shows is pretty awesome with the cosmos and defending the New Testament. He's one of the best out there at that. But he deserves the kudos he gets. Absolutely.
Yeah, he does. He does a great job. I love IP stuff. I haven't listened to him in a while. I have to get back to that. So, but I don't know. See, one thing I've noticed that IP's done is he does switch his views according to whatever literatures he's reading. So
Right.
I've seen him have different views on Genesis and the beginning of the world, and on how Adam and Eve, whether they're historical or not. And so I've kind of fluctuated a little bit on my views because I don't have anything really set in
Yeah.
stone on that, and I don't exactly understand how Adam and Eve, the historical issue, how that fits in with what we
Right.
know. And so I'd rather just, I think, like you said before we started here, is I think we just look at Jesus's resurrection. And like St. Paul said, if you
Right.
can prove that wrong, now you got something. If you find a dead body and that's Jesus, now you've got something.
Absolutely. See, all these other issues are peripheral to the major tenets of Christianity, the ones that are the major points, like the resurrection, Jesus is God, and really, I mean, that's the staple points of Christianity. But I mean, and then we have people out there that try to make it more than that, and that's where all these issues come into play with the drama in our communities, because then they say, oh no, the Trinity is also essential. Well, well, who decided that? Like, you see how these problems could easily rise up really quickly, and that's what happens in my community. I'm not sure about yours. I mean, your channel's pretty run. I don't see this on your channel, so
I don't, you know why? Because I feel like C.S. Lewis said something. A lot of the thing is, if atheists see us infighting, I don't know if that's going to bring them to the kingdom. I think they might use that as an excuse of, hey, they can't make up their minds, so why should we jump on board with them? And that type. So
right,
that's one scary thing. But I have had, I mean, I'm not a Calvinist, and I don't agree with the tulip. I think that there's
right,
certain aspects of the tulip that don't align with my views at all, and I'm definitely not a universalist. But I know there are Christians with these different views, and once in a while I'll get on and I'll talk about why I don't, especially universalism, why I don't agree with that. But it's interesting to see. I mean, it's interesting to see the when people take that stuff as if that's going to be something that determines whether or not you're going to live forever with God. It's like, yeah, show up at the door and I mean, as far as Calvinism versus say
yeah,
Molinism or Arminianism, Arminianism. Am I doing that right? So those,
Arminian, yeah.
yeah. So where do you stand on that? Are you coming from the Calvinist camp, or are you coming from a different?
No, no, I actually have contempt for Calvinism. I think it cheapens our God. It takes away from His love. For for me, God is true love, and I've experienced it. I know He's love, and to me, that just ruins it all. There, you can't have love and deterministic. If God's determining everyone's thoughts and beliefs, then it's fabricated. It's fabricated love. Love doesn't exist at that point. So there is a level of freedom we have, moral choices. We have choices to do things in this world, but it is limited because we can't choose where we're born. We can't like have like a boulder for breakfast or something like a rock, like things like that. Jump to the moon. We don't have that ability with our will, but we do have will to help others in love. Do you see how that works? Like we can love others and help others. And I think that's what God made us for, is to show his character, God's love and his character to other people. Jesus's character. Jesus would help the poor, he would heal. He healed thousands of people. It's not about yourself, it's about helping others. I think if people found that out, that their life would be much happier if they were more selfless instead of selfish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just you just reminded me when you talk about, I mean, that's the thing that Jesus was so shocking to people back then, because number one, they thought that if you're wealthy and you're healthy, that God was blessing you, and if you were sick
Right.
and blind and God was cursing you. And so Jesus completely upended that. He turned that around.
He revolutionized, yeah, just because you're in dire straits, even like God can still love you and be with you. And I think he is with the poor big time. And I've seen it on Invisible People. You should check that out. It's a heartwarming thing. It's run by a Christian that helps the homeless out. And you can just see God was with these poor people. And I
Mm,
wish, instead of all these Catholic churches, these huge church buildings they have that are millions of dollars, and all these huge complexes that they spend millions of dollars on. Just, I mean, why not just put them in your church and give them place to rest? I mean, this is so ridiculous. It's so greedy, and it's just plain religion. I think it comes down to lucre, filthy lucre at the very. It's a lot of these churches, and this is where we get atheists, and I don't blame them in their contempt for religion, because when they're not helping the poor, they're not helping the community at all. I mean, the church really isn't that active as it should be. But that's some of my complaints, I guess. I hope I'm not ranting by now, but
no, I agree. Some churches, I would say, I mean, I think like the church I attend, I think we do a pretty good job of reaching out in the community, even the local community, but also the global community. And I feel pretty happy with what they've done and what they've achieved. But I can say I definitely see some, you definitely see some hypocrisy out there. And we've seen that through the centuries, especially with the Catholic Church. When you could, I mean, in medieval times, imagine this, you could pay for this, is what Martin Luther protested against. You could pay for what they called indulgences. And you could pay for, like, you could just go give church money and say, I want to go sin, or I want to go cheat on my husband or cheat on my wife. And so
Yep.
you just pay the you pay the money to the church. They take your money, and then they say, okay, go ahead and indulge. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Well, and then some even say you go to heaven if you pay like a certain amount of money. I heard actually Catholic churches say if you pay this certain amount of fee, then you're not going to go to the I forget what they call it. It's the middle place, or whatever.
Oh
The
yeah. Oh, what? Shoot, why am I forgetting what that's called? I should know that. I was raised a Catholic. I should definitely know that. I'm forgetting. So yeah, you.
purgatory.
Oh,
You
purgatory.
can
That's
miss
right.
purgatory. Like it's so foolish. It's so stupid shenanigans and
Well, it's even
that type
even
of stuff I don't like.
oh, I think it's well, that's the other thing in these medieval times, that's what they did too. They said, "Okay, if your relative who sinned in life and you know the relative's stuck in purgatory right now, go ahead and you can pay the church and you're going to free your
Wow.
relative from purgatory so they can go to heaven." I mean, it's ridiculous. Just like looking back on that, I think, were these people just suckers? I mean, who believes this stuff? I'm not.
Right, I think they are suckers, or it's like maybe they want that. Like it's like some type of fantasy. Like they could just work their way to heaven, and that is a lot of the mindset of the world. They think they can work their way to heaven in their own righteousness. No,
Well,
our
that's
God is so
that's
righteous and holy. No way.
that is the great thing that distinguishes Christianity,
Yes.
because we say you have to have faith, and in the other traditions, a lot of them, like Mormons, or I don't mean Mormons. Actually, I don't know much about Mormon faith, but the Muslims, they think that God is keeping sort of a ledger, and you need to have more good actions than bad actions, or you're going to end up with all the women in hell.
Or like Islam, where there's like some type of
Oh, that's what I'm talking about, Islam.
oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. They think that when the guy saw hell, when Muhammad was shown hell, he says it was predominantly occupied by women.
Oh my gosh, isn't that misogynistic? I mean, what isn't? I mean, good gosh. I don't understand how they get the amount of people they have in their faith. I really don't. To me, I wonder how that could be, but it just tells you that people are misled easily, and you got to do your own research. I think maybe God said it best that if you seek Him, so you have to seek. That means research. That means looking up things, asking questions with your whole heart, and then you will find Him. And
Mhm.
maybe these people in these other religions have not done that. Like you have. You've done your due diligence, SJ. A lot of other people have, and Doki, probably other people. But I wish people would do that more often instead of just hearing what people say. The social influence and all this other stuff. Think for yourself. Don't be like this cultistic thinking. A lot of it is like, to me, I get sick of that as well with the Catholics. Well, I grew up a Catholic, therefore I believe, therefore you're a God believer. No, you're not. That's
Yeah.
just that's
I have
artificial.
I
Yeah.
have that in my family. My sister's very intelligent and she's got a really good job. She's everything about her. She's got her act together, and she's a Catholic still. She stayed in the Catholic faith, and and I always say to her, why are you still a Catholic? What's your? She tells me she's got a couple little miracles that did happen in her life, like pretty cool things. And she said that's enough. She said I can just look out the window, and I know that atheists hate this, but I can look at the trees, and I realized that it's clear. Look at the beauty in the
Yeah.
world. You realize there's this a beautiful creator who enjoys
Yes.
beauty, and so that's her. She doesn't feel any need to go read the Bible or do anything else besides what she's already discovered in her life. So I always
Amen.
think that's
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. I look at the beauty of this world, and for us to even notice beauty, how to like where does that even come from? To me, like an evolutionary scheme, I just don't see how that could work out. Because evolution only works on your genes and reproducing. It doesn't do things that are what we say they go beyond, physical reality, like abstract type of thinking, if you want to call it that. Like, there's a lot of abstract things part of reality, but those might be the most important things. And I think that to me trumps any type of naturalism. But that's my opinion. But I mean, me and atheists are welcome to disagree in things. But yeah, I think that's a good point, that the aesthetic beauty of this world is pretty compelling for a creator.
Yeah, and I even look at the like, if you look at the Fibonacci sequence, have you ever taken a look at that?
No, I haven't even heard of that. Wow, that sounds
Okay.
interesting.
Oh, this is really cool. So if you look at the Fibonacci sequence, so what it is you add the prior number. So it goes 0, 1, 1, 2. Then
Hmm.
it's like 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. And it keeps going like this. But what it does is that's a particular sequence that you can see built into things like sunflowers in the forming of a sunflower. You see it in snails. In the shell, you can see it in the
Wow,
galaxies. This exact sequence, like you can, if you measured out the distance of these spirals, the distance always works out to a Fibonacci sequence. And so it points to a source that is just sort of, I mean, it's just, to me, it's very beautiful, and God's beauty is something that you can see. And so
absolutely. That sounds like fractals. Have you heard of fractals?
I don't think so. What's that?
It's just like there's these designs inherent in creation, that there's these main designs. Like, if you have like a spiral universe design, there's millions and millions of little ones that are the same design, the same exact thing, but they're little, and they continue going, and it's infinite. They have So let's say you have like a spiral, the big spiral, and then there's little spirals in that big spiral, the same design, or the same what do you call those? It's like I just call it design, but and there's just an infinite of them. We have a lot of those things, fractals all over the place, and it's
Hmm.
beautiful. So why are there infinite of the same little things of the same thing inside the main one? Like, that's pretty incredible itself.
I think so too, and I mean, that's the other thing with that, and actually, in the chat, Hellbound's reminding me, going back to the golden ratio. The golden ratio is based on the Fibonacci sequence, and it's looking at, like, the ratio of 5 to 3, and what's fascinating
Yeah.
is the if you go to the Bible and you look at the specific specifications that God gave, um, Moses with the Ark of the Covenant and the size of it, it all works out to the golden ratio. It actually is to that ratio in the construction, which I found is fascinating.
That is fascinating. I love looking up some of these things. But also, did you know the Bible has these type of inherent mysterious things in the Bible as well? They're called acrostics, like
No,
hidden
I don't know about that.
acrostics. Yeah, well, for instance, in the book of Esther, like Esther to me is a real suspicious book. Like, it has a bunch of um like this ancient Near East mythology into a lot of its part of it. So it's questionable to me if it really is Esther's part of the canon or not. But in Esther, though, let's just say it was fake. God put he instituted his name in there through acrostics, and he put his name, like, it was three. If you go by these certain sequences in these patterns, that's where it's like patterns. He put "I am that I am" one time, "I am that I am," and he has one time Yahweh, and then he has Yahweh backwards. Like, he implanted his name through these incredible acrostics and patterns that in throughout the Bible. That's just one example. There's many more though.
That's cool.
So I
That, see,
thought that was
I
pretty
love that
awesome.
kind of stuff. But is that saying that Esther did not have the acrostics, or it did have
Um,
it?
he did, yeah. So
Okay.
either, let's just say Esther was like fabricated, or like if he had a misguided like his book was misguided or something. Well, still God gave him that acrostic. Like, it's definitely a inspired pattern that God put in there. But that's just another example too. Psalms 37 is another one another acrostic that the really bad wicked people, that if you look at the letters, like the third, it's like the second and third letter of each sentence, it spells out like judgment upon the wicked, and the victims of the wicked will be there at judgment day, and they will witness their
Hmm.
enemies getting paid back. So I mean, that's a promise. I think that's beautiful in a way, not necessarily to the people who are anti-theist or anti-Christian, but for the Christians, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. No, I do too. And I just you reminded me of something when you mentioned the Psalms, because one of the things that um that's kind of related a little bit to this is when Jesus, so many times he references the Old Testament, and one of the ones I had never really heard before. So Psalm 22, it says, my Lord, why hast thou forsaken me?" And
Yep.
that drew our attention to Psalm 22. But then he also does one with Psalm 31, which I thought was fascinating. He says, "Into your hands I commit my spirit."
Yeah.
And that brings us over to Psalm 31. And if you look at that, it talks about the people close to him and how they all abandon him. And that's what his apostles did when he was being crucified.
Yeah,
So,
and actually that's doubly, I think it's even another place in Zechariah where it says the sheep, or the yeah, they smite the shepherd, and the sheep, they go away, they
oh,
scatter. So there's
mhm.
even another attestation of that as well in Zechariah. Like,
Good, that's a
there's
good one.
many prophecies out there, right, for the messianic prophecies, and to me that is so compelling. Would To draw a non-believer to the faith, but like, atheists will say, "Why doesn't God just show up right in front of me and drop like a golden brick or something?" And well, number of things why God would probably not do that, because you can just dismiss it as some type of hallucination. I mean, why not? I mean, how would you know that it was something that? How would you validate that? And
That's a good
even Aaron, yeah, Aaron Ross said that too. Or I think it was Matt Dillahunty, or one of them says, "I could never validate it was God anyway." So they would, how would, it's almost unfalsifiable to some atheists. So there
mhm.
has to be, at some point inside you intrinsically, where you're going to have to believe in God. So
Yeah. So Kip Davis is asking for the sources for the acrostics. Do you have a book that you'd refer on that?
yes, it's Dr. Bullinger's companion Bible notes, and you'll
Okay,
find it. If if he wants to correspond or something, that's fine. Just email me at praisejesuschrist@gmail.com, and I'll get you the companion Bible notes with Dr. Bullinger. Yeah.
cool. That's very cool. I'm gonna look into that because I do find that stuff fascinating. And so, and I find
Yeah.
I mean, all these different references, like you're mentioning, to Jesus in the Old Testament. But like you say, just to talk about the miracles thing, I told you about my sister. One of the things that happened to her, she had two things happen when she was a little kid, and we were visiting Florida from Illinois, which is where we grew up. We were out in the ocean, and my sister got caught up in a rip current, and she
Oh,
started to
wow.
try to fight it. And you can't fight a rip current; you have to go with it. But she was very
Yeah.
little; she was only like 5 or 6. I forget exactly how old she was, but anyway, so she was young, and she all of a sudden, out of the blue, heard a female voice, which she had attributed to Mother Mary. But she heard a female voice, could have been her guardian angel or whatever,
Yeah.
tell her, uh, swim with the current, or don't try to fight it, swim with it, and you'll be okay. And she listened to the voice and was able to get away and free herself from the rip current eventually. And so that was really good. So that happened to her, what she considers a miracle. And the other thing that happened is she was sitting at this desk in our furniture business years ago. And she said to God, she said, there was a cross on top of the desk, this little, I can remember, it's just a little wooden
Hmm.
cross that my mom had. And the cross was sitting on top of the desk. And so she was saying prayers, and she said, God, if you're real, just give me some sort of a sign. I just really want to know.
Yeah.
And the cross moved across the desk.
Oh my gosh. That. Yeah.
So she doesn't feel any need to go investigate anything else, like I told you. She's like, "I'm good to go."
Yeah, that would have did it for me. For sure. Yeah. That's happened in my life too, where like, trucks on the like there's like so slim of opportunity for for me as in the car to get out of it. Like it would have to be supernatural in some way that I've escaped head-on collisions with trucks. And like something would tell me just to move really quick to the side to get over at that exact moment.
Wow.
And I mean, a lot of people might say, "Oh no, that's just evolution. You know, you're just reacting to something or whatever." But to me, no. I Evolution doesn't give you the exact moment, you know, like and then the perfect angle to move over and things like that. Like to me, that's there's just no coincidences, and I feel like that was obviously God, and helped me out with that several times. And yeah, like, God does show He exists in our life, but yeah, you just can't close your heart up to Him.
I totally agree with you, and I mean, I look at myself between the ages of 16 and 23, I was in 5 car accidents. 2 of them, I
Wow.
completely totaled the car, got my family kicked off of State Farm insurance because of my terrible I
Oh
survived
wow.
and walked away from every single one of those without even a scratch. And so
Hey, that's a wow. What a testimony. Yeah.
it's like
Wow.
no matter what badness happens to me, God's gonna let me get away. It's like somehow it's terrible. I mean, it's just terrible. But then I started driving pretty well, so I haven't had an accident since then. Thank God. But then I
Amen.
got
Thank
away
God
from
for
some
that.
guy sitting in the back of my car who tried to attack me, and so I somehow have skated. I've had very lucky situations where I feel like God has sort of had my back. It doesn't mean I won't get in an accident. And, something terrible couldn't might happen tomorrow, but somehow I've been spared. So
Yeah, and that's happened to me in my life and my family as well several times. God has seemingly had His hand on our family when many times it could have crumbled and went in shambles. And I've if yeah, I'm just thankful for what God has done, and He's shown me, He's revealed Himself to me, and I know I've felt Him, I've experienced Him. Um, he is a loving, He's of a incomprehensibly loving spirit. It's a love that people don't even understand. Um, he's He's faithful. He will never leave or forsake you, as the Bible says. I just hope people get to experience that, and if I just don't know what to say. Like the best, I just hopefully people believe me. If people are like looking for something outside the Bible to get them to God, well, maybe a testimony might be that. And I do have a testimony. I felt the presence of God, and He is real. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, and I've had my own situations that I've talked about on my channel before, and one time God corrected me audibly in 2016 about something I was thinking that was a bad idea, and it just kind of brings me back to that one verse in Isaiah that says, "Come, let us reason together." And so he explained how
Yeah.
I was thinking the wrong thing, and so that I mean I believe firmly, and I feel like I'm going to go out and use all my spare time. I know Kip thinks it's kind of strange that I I teach business management in a university, and so you don't see me on making my videos about business management because number one, I want people to watch them.
Yeah.
It's
You.
kind of boring. Business management.
Yeah.
I can make business management kind of fun. Every once in a while, I have made a video that totally has to do with my work, but those, those, I don't have the passion in that. I want to bring Christ to people, and so I feel like it's really important.
Amen. I love your work, SJ. I've always admired your channel. You've very classy stuff on your. I never see anything like that is like disheartening, or something that is foul or something like that. You always have good content. Your characters upmost at the high. I just appreciate what you do online for the Christian community. So I want to say that and give you thanks for that.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate what you do too. I think you're making a great example, and you're bringing people in, and I think you
Thank you.
open the. I mean, the fact that you've like your friendship with people like Skylar and Dr. Josh, I think that's wonderful that you've kept a friendship, and so I've been trying to.
Yeah.
Now Skylar's back. Did you see he left and now he's
Yes,
back? And
he's back and roaring with him and Darth. It's hilarious, those two, those back and forths there. Yeah.
so Yeah, so I think they're funny. Well, he's also I noticed on his channel, he's been doing like he goes on Discord. Is that what is that where he gets Darth? That's probably where he gets Darth.
Yes, he's in the politics server. If you want to ever hang out there, it might be pretty cool. But are you a Darth fan? Because I've seen him come on your channel sometimes, and I
I,
think one time he got pissed off at you, and I thought, wow, I mean, SJ's so nice to you, Darth. Why are you biting at her for?
he's a unique individual. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
between him and the other one is Kent Hovind. We got these people. Kent is I probably shouldn't even talk about this, but Kent is not in a good situation right now. So that's what I'll say.
Unfortunately, no. And the YECs are, I think, feeling the brunt of that. But life goes on. I think it's only going to be a month anyway. As far as wait, I don't want to get too far into that, but yeah,
Yeah, this is funny. These people well, I can Kip says, "Let's all be friends." No, can so what do I do?
absolutely,
Oh, it's well that when I disagree, see, people want to sometimes, I see Kip saying, I disagree. I don't take correction. I take correction if I feel that the person has corrected me correctly. I don't take correction if I feel that the person is incorrect on something. I don't see that as taking correction because somebody wants to sort of mansplain something to me, and I don't agree. It's like,
you're right.
it's like
Oh, so
so
I
we
mean,
should.
you might have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying we're coming up on an hour and almost 15 minutes here, so I just wanted to see where you wanted to if you wanted to make any other kind of key points here before we close it off for the night.
I was just wondering because I don't want to put you under the behind the eight ball in this. I really don't. I have a high viewpoint of view, so I just wondering about women preaching in the church. Like, do you think they should be silent? Like, what's your viewpoint on that?
I have to tell you, one of the reasons why I was doubting Christianity for many years is because of my position on I thought women should be in the
Yeah.
churches and should be the senior pastors or priests. And I definitely thought that for many years. But then I decided I'm going to go see what Jesus said and what the
Hmm.
gospels, what the epistles, what all that says. And not just First Timothy 2:12, but there are quite a few passages that it gives us a hierarchy. So it goes God, Jesus is at the top, then the
Yeah.
man, then the woman. That's how it is. So if I don't like it, it doesn't really matter. If I can understand it now. The hierarchy of the church, the senior pastors need to be male. Their wives can come in there and speak with them, and that's totally fine. But the hierarchy definitely goes Jesus, the man, then the female.
Yeah.
So that's my position. So I don't think women should be doing that in the church.
That is the predominant position, but I do not. I'm actually anti traditionalist viewpoint on that. I think it's chauvinistic, and I think I can lead you to material you would be amazed that women have authority, especially in the evangelical preaching. I do believe women can preach and be evangelicals, but also can also be apostles. And it was I forget if it was Lydia or someone else, but Ben Witherington. I can give you the material for this. He has a whole he has a whole scholarship chapter in his book on this, but also he has a YouTube video I can send you that it definitely. It's not Lydia, but it's Chloe. It's not Chloe either, but it's another one
Phoebe.
out there. Phoebe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have
That.
Lydia, Phoebe, and Priscilla, who were definitely leading in the church, and definitely I think one of them is a deacon. So I don't think that I do think that there in those times with Paul, there were definitely some women working with him, and I think women have a lot of positions in the church. I'm just saying that I think that senior position should be male. That's all.
Yeah,
So
no, that's fine. I don't hold to that. I think that God can utilize a divinely inspired woman to do a spiritual job. Now, I mean, as far as the family, I agree that the man is clearly the head of the household to take care of the family. He's the masculinity and protect his family. But when it comes to a church, a flock, he certainly can lead a woman to be ahead of that. And if you want, you can watch me and CJ's debate on that. I don't know if I don't know if you've seen that or not,
oh,
but
no, I haven't. I'll definitely need to see that because I didn't know what your position was on that.
yeah, I
So
hold that women can have. administrative power in the church. So I think it's kind of chauvinistic. There's no biblical precedent for it. I'm sorry. I mean, I'd love to debate anyone on that, but that's
Yeah.
why
No,
I
I
asked
think
you
that
because
women I don't have a problem with women preaching in the church and even being it's just again for me it's that senior role because there has to be the church
right.
if I look at the hierarchy. But I definitely I mean even myself I'm out there learning and investigating and trying to share the truth. I think God's inspired me to do that. I don't really think he wants me to stop. Every time 9 times out of
Absolutely.
10 when I open up my Bible right before I get on these chats like I did today, I open up to Luke 24 every single time. And there's not
Yeah.
why? Why am I opening up to the road to Emmaus? I mean, I feel like God is giving me some specific message that I still haven't figured out exactly what it is. But
Yeah. Yep.
but it's that
See,
Jesus
yeah.
opened your eyes. So,
Absolutely. I would say that the Spirit's really working in your life. I can see it. You're a divinely inspired woman. And I don't see if you actually wanted to and pursue something like being a pastor or having some type of authority in a church. Who, why, who would stop that? Like, is someone going to stop that? There's no spirit. You're under Jesus. There is no female or male under Jesus. He made that clear. He says there's no race under Jesus. Under Galatians, and there's several other places as well.
mhm.
Um, Biblically inspired women, they can have authority in a church. It's a remember, the church is a spiritual environment. It's not like a house, a house with a family. That's a completely different thing, environment. So, do you see how they can get crossed up really quick? I know this pisses off a lot of males, or a lot of men, but so be it. There's actually evidence from there's a guy named Ben Witherington. He's a PhD New Testament scholar, one of the highest regarded, and he has a whole thing out there, a whole teaching on that. I'm gonna have to send that to you. You might be incredibly amazed by that.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely take a look and I've heard his name before, so I'll definitely take a look at that. And
Yeah,
even I mean, I looked at a scholarly article on First Timothy 2:12, and it was interesting because they looked at the original Greek, and the word that they talked about had something like it said something like women should not usurp authority from a man, which means a little bit different than
right.
what I mean. That's what they thought the original Greek was going back and saying, rather than a woman who just wants to be an authority. So she shouldn't steal authority illegitimately, is what that's sort of saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's
Mhm.
Melissa Scott. She has a good exegesis on that as well. She's a firebrand for God. Man, that woman is as she can see like the fire in her spirit there. She's a
Mm.
divine inspired woman too, Melissa Scott. So these are people, if there are people out there like looking for a different, explanation, because to me it's I don't to me that's just this to me it just doesn't really sit well with me, some of these traditional viewpoints in the church, but that's just some of my little qualms I have.
I just thought of something funny that I just read. I mean, I still think going back to Genesis 3 when we talked about that. I was thinking, so first Eve, the serpent approaches Eve and gets Eve to go eat. We don't know if it's an apple, but whatever it was, eating from the tree of knowledge. So Eve goes and eats from it, and she gets Adam to eat from it. So then God confronts them and says, and Adam's like, the woman that you gave me made me do this. And then she
The
and
man's
then
always blaming
she's
the
like,
woman.
no, the serpent did it. The serpent made me do it. So both of them so
The
they got
woman's just telling the truth. Yeah, the men, make the woman to be the one who's the problem. The one who did it.
It's like
It's
it's
hilarious.
so funny that he did that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the apple. People always say there's an apple. There's not an apple mentioned in Genesis. It's just so anyway. So praise. I should probably we should probably
Yeah.
get moving on here. But I want to say thank you for coming on my channel. I'd love to go on your channel. I love what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So we got to
Anytime.
keep it out there. So any other closing comments or messages or anything you want to make sure people know about?
Yeah, just we usually have streams at night, and we have a lot of good discussions, and a lot of them are controversial and contentious in a good way, not contentious. Well, sometimes in a good way, not always. But if you guys want to join in these debates and discussions, I mean, just come on into the and join in. And this was a delightful discussion. I really enjoyed this, SJ. You're a higher level class Christian to me, and I'm going to keep on. I can't wait for your content in the future, and God bless you for what you've done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I was just looking at what Ken Ami says. God blames Adam. Adam blamed God and Eve. Eve blamed the serpent, and the serpent had to take the blame because it didn't have a leg to stand on.
That was a perfect pun. I love that.
No, that's good. So I don't remember if I put your link in the chat, but if I didn't, I don't mean the chat, in the description. If I didn't, I'm definitely going to link you up. You guys, please go over to Praise's channel, like, subscribe, and please like and subscribe to mine if you like this content. I hope you do. And just remember, whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do it all in the glory of God. So Praise, you want to
Amen.
mention what you're working on next, or where people can, I know where people can find you, but are you going on anybody else's channels to do debates or anything like that coming up?
Oh yes, I think SFT's channel will be coming on here debate. I think it's unconditional election when Jesus is Lord. His name's Jill. Whoops, it's not a pun yet, but whatever that word is, it is. But yeah, I'll be debating on that. It's like a Calvinistic thing, so I am anti-Calvinistic. But I appreciate the chat. A lot of good comments today, and God bless.
Yeah, thank you. God bless you guys. Thank you, Timothy and Hellbound and Doki Doki, all you guys in here. Gorgeous Roddy Chrome. Who else is in? Let me just say hi to people who are in here really quickly before I go. Ken Ami, uh, Hellbound Heathen, Kip Davis. So very good to see all of you guys in here. And so earlier we had, of course, your good friend DH, the digital ham. So
Yeah, Josh is in the house. Good to see Josh. Yeah, I enjoy his work on his channel. A lot of good stuff.
yeah, yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you guys. Please, again, like, subscribe, and do come again. And bye bye.